and welcome to episode 3 of Star Guitar. Now, this week's guest you have just heard. He very kindly recorded me the intro music a few weeks back. It's a little bit of a song of his called Try, 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 which was on his first album, Show Me How the Spectres Dance, released in 2006. I am talking about Liam Frost, formerly of Liam Frost and the Slowdown Family. He is a great, great songwriter from Manchester. I met him around the time of his second album, We Ain't Got No Money Honey, But We Got Rain. So that was about 2008, 2009. He's been performing ever since, releasing bits and bobs with side projects and playing live a lot. And he finally released his third album, The Latchkey Kid, last month. Now, Liam has always had beautiful, interesting guitars, and lots of them, as you're about to hear. So he was definitely somebody that I wanted to talk to for this podcast. So he was playing in London a few weeks back. I went along and caught up with him then. So here goes, episode 3 of Star Guitar.
Hello there, this is Star Guitar, and my name is Liam Frost. So I'll talk about 2 early memories.
Just one.
No way, man, no way. My first memory is of my dad making a guitar for me out of kind of, plywood. And it's like a flat thing that he put some sort of nylon strings across, and it didn't really make a sound. And I remember miming to a Sheena Easton video on the chart show along to it. I must have been maybe 4 years old. I was already singing by that point, and I think I've always known what I wanted to do.
Did you ask him to make it for you?
I did, yeah. I said, will you make me a guitar? And they cut out this like sort of vague acoustic guitar shape, painted it white, and put some sort of almost like an Olympic white Strat or something like that, playing along to, I can't remember the song, I just remember Sheena Easton's name and it being on the chart show. Fast forward to high school, like a very big jump, and I had been singing for quite a while and wanted to learn to play the guitar as a tool for writing songs. And I, on a fake sick day from high school, rang Bury Music Service inquiring about guitar lessons, and forgot about it. And a couple of weeks later, my school music teacher, Mr. Hopkins, said your guitar lessons start next week, and I didn't have a guitar. I had maybe two guitar lessons, 3 guitar lessons through the music service, and I was using the music teacher's guitar for the first couple. And then I bought a Honor acoustic, like a classical acoustic from Argos for 40 quid that I maybe got for my birthday. And then the guitar teacher broke his back, and there wasn't a guitar teacher across Bury Music Service. So I bought, back in like the mid-90s, they used to have the A5 chord booklets of like Oasis and Blur and Stone Roses and I think Bon Jovi. And I was in love with a girl in year 7 called Sarah Lynch, and she really liked Bon Jovi. So I got the Bon Jovi A5 booklet, and so begun like a sort of 2 or 3 year obsession with Bon Jovi, which alongside like the more tasteful line of stuff that was kind of out in the era. But man, I loved that Crossroads album for a while.
That was like the best of, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it had an Always, which was the sort of like best of attached single, which is a classic now.
Did you learn that to try and serenade?
Yeah, it didn't work. God, I did some stupid shit in high school to try and get girls to overcome like crippling shyness. And that was how it started. A couple of years later, I got an Epiphone Les Paul from Johnny Roadhouse that I proceeded to try and decorate in like a sort of mirrored mosaic style one day.
Why?
I don't know, I thought it looked cool. I'd gone full Mosher by this point. It was like Smashing Pumpkins. I think it was leaning into that a little bit. Maybe there was less Moshery, like a U2 video where he had a mirrored guitar.
Was it The Fly or something like that? It was
Maybe.
Around Achtung Baby where he
got
mirrored.
And Squire Strat, Epiphone SG, a whole host of like catalogue acoustic guitars.
All at the same time, or were you sort of trading them? And
over a couple of years. I remember I had the Strat, like Squire Strat, that was covered in like nail glitter and stickers, and a Countryman, like a Countryman acoustic from Argos. There was an encore in there as well somewhere.
Oh, always.
Yeah, always encore. It was terrible guitar. And that was kind of what I wrote my first songs on, maybe age 15, 16. I started going playing acoustic anarchy at the Star and Garter in Manchester with this really shit Countryman with a piezo pickup in it. And there was this one song that they really loved. And it kind of got me into that world. And that's, as my PR always said early on, like that was how I was getting into nightclubs, just being a unit and going to acoustic anarchy and playing tunes.
When did you? Well, you said you always knew what you wanted to do, but when did you think there was something that you could do?
Probably around then.
Right.
Probably around then. I finished GCSEs and didn't want to go and do a traditional A level, probably through laziness. And I just heard about this this course, Access to Music, which is like a nationwide thing now. I think it's just called Access, maybe. That was based in Sankey Soap in Manchester, in that building. And I did an audition to go on that course, didn't require any grades, and I was in. And that's where I was like, well, yeah, maybe I could make something of this. And they were like, I did my audition. It was this one song that I wrote that was it was in like an open E tuning, but I tuned the low E down to a C sharp, and it had harmonics in it, and it was finger picked. I've been doing the same shit for like 20 years. I've been doing the same stuff this entire time. And they were just like, oh, well, you're definitely on this course. So I think by that point I was like, okay, well, maybe this is something I'm actually sincerely good at.
When did you write your first good song then that you would class as
probably
good?
16.
16?
Yeah, probably that song. I can't remember the title now, but I remember that was the tuning for it. Because I was just thinking, the truss rod in this thing must be... Because it was a Countryman. They were called Countrymen, weren't they? It was like a thing across the head. I was like, the truss rod is taking a pasting on this. I think that was when I knew. And on that course, I started like a punk rock band. And that was when I got the Epiphone SG. We had a song that really ripped off One Arm Scissor by At the Drive-In. It was like that was the era, maybe 2001, 2002, where that music came to prominence, really. Like Jimmy Eat World, At the Drive-In, the Get Up Kids, Glassjaw, those sorts of bands. And then stuff over here like Funeral for a Friend. It was fashionable, and I was, easily led. There was a scene for it, so I tried it out. But the entire time I was writing these acoustic songs as well.
Keeping them secret?
Yeah, not really playing them much, but there was like a couple of tunes here and there. And I reconnected with an old high school friend, Becky Hill, who was she was at Derby University with these lads that could record music, and they came down here, and one of them took a job at the Beeb, and I think I like got a National Express down to Wood Green and recorded my first like solo songs that became what was the Slowdown Family. And Paper Boats from my first record was on there. She painted pictures on it, all with like the ghost of an American accent.
Right. Okay.
Because I was still reeling from, Funeral for a Friend and Jimmy Eat World and that sort of stuff.
You very much don't sing with an American accent
well,
anymore.
What
you
happened,
haven't done. So
what happened with that? We jumped forward a little bit more after that, and I was starting to gain a bit of traction. I had a job at the Royal Bank of Scotland Credit Card Centre in Manchester, so I'd made a bit of money, and I was like, I'm going to go and record like a proper 4-track EP. And I just met Pete around that time, Pete Marshall, who's with me tonight. I'd opened up on some bills that his band was playing at, and he put me in touch with this guy, Pete Troughton, who runs a studio just outside of Rochdale called Studio. And I'd known of it because it was like where a few bands of that era had recorded that. So there was a band from Bolton, Kinesis. Do you remember Kinesis?
I remember, yeah.
So Kinesis recorded their stuff there. And it was kind of known as like the good studio, and he had a decent set of ears. And we recorded the 4-track EP that basically got me signed. So it was like try. She Painted Pictures, Is This Love, One More, and that was where it started. I just started handing it out everywhere, and Guy got hold of it. So I sent it to City Life magazine, which is like now just a fold out in the MEN. And there were a couple of people there, Leanne Steinberg, who wrote for Music Week at the time, and Emma Unsworth, who now is a super successful author.
Yeah, wrote Animals.
Animals, which has just been released as a film. And around that time, I think that Emma and Guy Garvey had been in a relationship, but were friends. And she went round with that 4-track to Guy and said, you got to listen to this. And then maybe, a night or so later, I got this pissed phone call at like 2 a.m. saying, Liam, it's Guy Garvey. I'd love to put your EP out on Skinny Dog. And and I was like, because I'd loved Elbow for a long time, and still do. Like the first record, like Red and Scattered Black and Whites and Newborn. I loved it, and obviously they were and are still the dons in the city, So it really knocked me on my arse to be in my council house on the Kersal border of Prestwich, in my room that was still covered with posters of like A Perfect Circle and Smashing Pumpkins and all this shit, and then just like someone that was actually well known like ringing me up to say they liked my stuff, and then it just spun out from there. Leanne Steinberg from City Life wrote about me in Music Week, and then the labels got in touch, and that was it. By this point I had a Takamine.
Oh right, okay.
That I bought on an Egg credit card.
Well, that definitely shows a sign of... definitely dates it, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure, Egg credit card.
Yeah.
It was really nice, actually. I ended up, once I started making money out of music, I gave it to a singer-songwriter in the city that was opening up for us, for the Slowdown Family quite a lot. Because I liked music, and she had a guitar that had a terrible jack socket in it, so I just gave her my Takamine because I wasn't using it anymore. And I think she's still got it.
Okay.
Played it a couple of times.
Are you going to get it back? Or
Nah,
is it no?
fuck it. Got these beasts now. Although I'm always like wrestling with the pickups in various guitars.
Before we move on to the guitars that you've got sitting next to you, I just want to ask, you mentioned that the guitar was something that you used to sort of overcome crippling shyness when you were at school. Is that something that carried on? That it was a bit of a, like a
crutch?
Yeah,
crutch, sure.
Almost like a conversation starter as well, I guess.
I was talking about this recently. I've got a greyhound, and I was out.
That's a dog, by the way.
A greyhound, a greyhound acoustic. It's a pawn shop vintage thing, and I was out walking the dog and was speaking to another dog walker, and I was talking about shyness and how I used to be particularly shy and how music helped me to sort of overcome that. And my fellow dog walker said that she didn't really believe that for a second, but I was and am still. Like, I kind of feel like I've maybe got a bit of imposter syndrome. I kind of walk into every situation, like soundcheck tonight, like thinking, God, Nathan, who's doing the sound tonight, it's like, this guy must know I'm faking it. Like, I still do it now. So in whatever situation I walk into, I feel uncomfortable. But music, I guess has helped me sort of overcome that, I guess. There's a Nick Cave quote from the first film that he made, where I think he was speaking about Nick Cave, the artist, and then Nick Cave, the person, and how it was kind of a mask that you put on, but over the years the mask begun to calcify beneath the skin, and like I always think of that, like as I started to play more shows. I did this tour with Stephen Fretwell that was just before I got signed, before In the City, which obviously dates that as well, because now In the City doesn't exist. And meeting Guy and seeing how these people that had like that little bit of experience with the public in a sort of music setting and kind of almost mimicking them. And as you start to meet more like industry people, I was just like kind of seeing how they were around other people, and I guess that's where I picked it up. And then it was like fake it till you make it sort of thing, I suppose.
Just pretend to be a confident person.
Yeah, pretend to be a confident person, and it comes. Yeah. Because I was like, a slightly chubby kid with an emo fringe. It was like, and now like I'm just like a big dude with a quiff, and it doesn't change. I still feel odd inside, but you just learn how to fake it, I suppose, more.
Okay, so I can see a resonator guitar.
Yeah.
In my eye line. A resonator guitar, for anyone listening who isn't familiar with that, is if you've ever seen the Dire Straits album, is it Brothers in Arms?
Brothers in Arms, yeah, it's like the Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, the national guitar that is on the cover of that.
Yeah.
Is a resonator. I think blues musicians have them because they've got like an amplifying cone inside them. So before electric guitars became a thing, they were what blues musicians used in the 30s to get more volume, and they're sort of, would you say, synonymous with slide guitar and blues and stuff?
Yeah.
So what have you got?
This is a resonator from a company on eBay. It's a guy that buys parts from overseas and puts them together. But he's I think that they make them for various kind of, I don't want to say budget because they're still quite expensive, but for around the £600 mark, you can get a resonator like this from various companies. But the guy that makes them has a company called Icarus Guitars, and he's based in Devon, I think. And he's just a really good luthier and knows how to put these things together. And it's a really inspiring sound to it. Like it's almost, because it's a full steel body. You kind of assume it's going to have that tone to it, but it's actually like it's quite woody. Needs a tune, but it's. Have
you got it in standard tuning?
Open G. I mean, it's still out of tune, but it's got a really, really nice feel to it, and it's very comfortable to play. So, like, finger-picked songs feel slightly different on it. It's the newest guitar that I have, which is why I'm still wrestling, as we spoke before, with the pickup and how to make it work in a live setting.
When you get a new guitar like that that's got such a different sound, because obviously, like, you get a new acoustic, the differences are going to be subtle, if at best, really. But you get something like that, and it sounds very different to other stuff you've got. Does it make you play different stuff and write differently?
Yeah, sure. There's a when I play live, specifically in this setting that I play in, it's all about kind of dynamic and light and shade, and like trying to control the crowd with like vocal, I suppose, taking it down to whisper, so you like deaden the room. And this guitar kind of feels like the perfect tool for that. Like, I can really take it down and play something pretty and a bit intricate. And yeah, that's what I feel about this guitar.
Okay. It's I mean, if nothing else, it would look beautiful hanging on a wall.
It does, yeah. It sits in my front room. The thing I always think about resonator guitars, the first person I think of is Graham Lister from Red Dwarf, because he had a resonator. He had a resonator.
I was thinking of, well, obviously the
Mark Knopfler.
It was Mark Knopfler. Oh, is it C.W. Stone King that plays one as well, doesn't he? I think.
But now, like, as I've sort of delved more and more into Americana and bluegrass, you see more and more of them around. I mean, Bon Iver is like the classic one, first album era Bon Iver. But I've been listening to this stuff like Nickel Creek, Molly Tuttle, people like that.
How many guitars do you think you've owned?
Too many.
Too many.
Yeah. So we'll go back to being a poor council estate kid.
Yeah.
In Prestwich, getting my first advance and getting a publishing advance and being given such a ludicrous amount of money.
What we took now? 2004?
2005.
2005. Okay.
I'd got the record deal, and I'd got an accountant. I had an agent. I had my manager. And I remember going to the accountant's office just after I'd signed the deal, and he was like, "We're not going to be able to set up your business account in time to do any of this. So you're going to have to get the first advance into your personal account." And he's like, "I don't know when it's going to hit, but it's going to hit." And my girlfriend at the time, we'd worked at the same credit card centre, and she'd taken a day off, and I'd stayed at her house where her parents lived, in Bramall in Cheshire. And I remember one day just walking down into the village and checking my account, and there being 17 grand in it. And I was just like, oh, things have changed. And we immediately went into town, and I bought like a modern J45 Gibson. And that's where it all started. It got really dirty really quick. I met a guitar broker who worked around the Northwest, who dealt specifically in vintage guitars, and I had a thing for Gibsons. And I bought a 63 Hummingbird. Let's list them now. 63 Hummingbird, 64 J45, a 62 J200. I bought a Gretsch Countryman, like a modern one. A 64 Casino. Which we've seen in various YouTube videos. A 970 Telecaster in Olympic white, which I still feel sad about getting rid of. A couple of the Gretches. 2 modern Martins, a Hofner, and I think that might be it. There might be more, but it really, like, a lot of money.
From having that money in your account, though, if you add all that up, I mean, it wasn't all on one day.
No. This was over the course of maybe 2 or 3 years through like publishing, and it was good because when I'd stopped being able to pay my mortgage, I could just sell a vintage guitar and it was fine. Paul Weller tried to buy my casino off me.
Okay, so tell us about that.
So
it was the same, wasn't it? It was the same one.
Yeah, exactly the same one. So he was playing a show in Manchester at the arena, and he on tour had snapped the headstock off his casino, and the guitar broker who had bought it off said Weller has broken his casino and he's after another. And I just said over the phone, look, he can borrow it for the night if he wants to, like it, you know. And this broker said something along the lines of, Paul Weller doesn't borrow casinos, he buys casinos. And I just hung up. It was just like, okay, I'm not having any of that. And that's how it works out. But yeah, Weller is like a Weller guitar and a Beatles guitar, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when I sold it, it stayed within my family, like within the kind of musical fraternity of friends. So I still use it from time to time. But as I was just finding that I was doing more and more of the sort of shows that I'm doing, where we are tonight at the Surfer Jazz Quarters in Dalston, I was just playing acoustic more and doing solo shows, and it was more of what I was into. So I was just like, I'm not really that stressed if I let it go. And that's when I bought these as well. So
and these things are, you know, they've got great stories when you get them, and I suppose when you sell them on, it's all part of the story, sure. And it goes to somebody, as long as it goes to somebody that...
I think that casino belonged to Wags from the Happy Mondays before me.
Oh.
And he sold it at the Johnny Roadhouse. And he had run out of money, and I was the only person in Manchester with money at the time. So because I just got publishing, so I bought it. But everyone wanted it, and I got it. Do you need
they want to put some tunes on now?
Okay, we had to. We were sitting in the basement of the venue that Liam's playing in this evening in Dalston, and the bar needed to open basically. So we've moved now into the back of a people carrier, which was parked outside. We didn't break in. We know the person that owns it. So if things sound a bit different, it's because we're sitting in a car now rather than underneath a stage. Anyway, Liam. We were talking about your frankly ridiculous collection of vintage guitars. Do you were you sorry to see them go? Are you sad that you don't own them anymore?
I think because, I mean, every single one of those acoustic guitars I put a pickup in, and if you know much about like the vintage guitar community, it always devalues them to put them in. It's not a huge amount, but it always devalues them. And sometimes you see guitarists that will, you know, put the pickup in at the sound hole, because I used to use humbucker pickups at the time, and then let the wire hang out and maybe just tape it to the side. But no, I like tidiness, and I was willing to take the hit because I had more money than sense at the time. And I think, you know, coupling that with the fact that I've always seen the guitar as a tool for songwriting rather than something to kind of shred on and be this big showman, like shredding away. It was never that painful for me to get rid of them. That said, there's maybe one or two that I was saddened to get rid of. And I think one of them was definitely the 60s J45.
Mm-hmm.
It was in like a kind of red burst. It's quite a rare colour, and it sounded amazing. It used to be the J200 because it looked the coolest.
Yeah.
But wasn't as good sounding. It was one of the J200s that was like the Pete Townsend, so it had the Gibson Tune-o-matic bridge in it, like a metal bridge.
Yeah, okay, I know.
Which meant that, you know, it was metal onto the wooden bridge, and then that was the tone you were getting. So it was missing that kind of wood-on-wood tone that you get from a guitar with a wooden or a bone bridge. And I just didn't like it as much, whereas that J45 was like an absolute killer. And maybe the 70s Olympic White Telecaster.
Yeah.
But that didn't stick around for long. There's one guitar that we're missing talking about, which missed at the beginning there when we were going through the vintage guitar list. And it was a 50s Gibson, like arch-top jazz guitar. And it's got a pretty wild story behind it. I think that I got it when I got rid of the J200. And there was a guitar shop that opened on Oxford Road in Manchester, where I was living at the time, was selling vintage gear. I'm not naming the guitar company. I don't think they exist anymore. They're based in London as well. you can start making your own assumptions. And most people that are into guitars will probably know of them anyway and know which one I'm talking about. And I'd used some of the J200 money to buy this archtop. And I was into it, but I wasn't super into it. And I got back in touch with that guitar broker about doing a switch. And he was like, I'll give you some money plus this Everly Brothers J185, which in retrospect is another one I'm a bit sad. Even though the stars on it, like the Everly Brothers acoustics have stars on the inlays instead of the know, usual abalone or pearl inlays that you get on the neck. And he was like, I'm going to take it back to this shop as soon as I've got it from you. And I can't tell you why, but you might hear about it down the line. So he does that. And then a couple of weeks later, I see this news thing come up about some European gangsters stealing a massive collection of guitars from this Italian guitar museum. And this company had been done for it. And it was quite clear that I'd basically had stolen goods in my flat. And it was like a 50s Gibson electric. Yeah, another one in retrospect that was a super, super cool guitar that I kind of wish I had, but it was stolen. So, and I just had that in my house. And the Everly Brothers guitar was cool. So,
yeah, it's probably best to get rid of that then if there's European gangsters involved as well.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of guitars I went through because I was 23, 24 with a lot of money for what it was at the time and 0 cents.
Wouldn't change a thing.
I've still not got any sense. But I've just not got the money to go and spend ludicrous amounts on guitars now.
The other guitars that you've got with you tonight are harmony guitars, right?
A Harmony and a Silvertone, yeah.
So they've got a really sort of interesting history, those brands. They're like sort of catalogue or supermarket guitars from the States, aren't they?
Yeah, so it's almost like going back to the Argos Honor in a way, but slightly better made with nicer woods and from the 60s. I first saw a Harmony acoustic on the cover of a Pete Molinari record, whose music I still haven't heard, but I should be into because I know that Springsteen likes it. And I just saw the headstock of the Harmony Sovereign and thought, man, that's a really pretty headstock. Like, it's got a specific decal on it, hasn't it? And started just like looking for cheaper acoustic guitars. I was just like, what can I get that's cool, that's a little bit cheaper, that I know that no one else is going to have? And I started just looking through these Harmony forums, and there's this kind of folklore around them, that they're these guitars that were made for the Sears catalogue in the US, I think up until relatively recently. But they became known as the poor man's Martin because they had the same bracing and a lot of the same woods, but they were just cheaper made. But they came to prominence because it was a guitar, well, I think Rolling Stones might have used them at one point, but it was the acoustic guitar that was used on Led Zeppelin 4, so Stairway, all that kind of thing. It's like a specific code. It was this Harmony Sovereign H1260. So I just started Googling around and trying to find people that were kind of fixing them up and doing them and selling them on. And I found this guy in Cornwall on eBay that was buying and selling Harmonies. Like, he'd buy them and fix them. The reason that they need fixing is because the necks on them were really badly attached. So what they need is a complete neck reset with a shem putting in kind of underneath the bit where the neck joins the body. But once they've done that, they're just cannons, fucking incredible guitars. So the first one I got was, I'll explain it this way. So Harmony had a couple of other kind of brand names that it went under, and I think there was K and Silvertone, maybe a couple more. And I had the Silvertone version of the H1260 Harmony Sovereign, and it's really good. It's a really good guitar. One of the best I've ever played, like more than the like $7,000 60s J200 that I had at one point. They're really cool, and I just fell for it immediately, and I've stuck with it since. Between that and the other Harmony that I've got, I had a 70s Guild, like a sort of small-bodied, almost like parlour style kind of thing.
Yeah.
And in those years, I was a little bit leaner. Like, I'd done a lot of running, a lot of weightlifting, and I looked like a candlelight guitar. But as I kind of like stacked on a little bit more weight, I started looking like fucking George Formby or something. So it just made less sense to have it. So I traded it in with the guitarist from the Slowdown, Drew, who still has it, so it's still in the family. I traded it with him for a Harmony Rocket Electric, which I'd advised him to buy anyway. and then got rid of that, and I bought the Harmony Sovereign with the headstock. The thing about that one is it's a 60s one. It's from here. It came from Battery Studios in Willesden Green by the guy who I think co-wrote Torn. So I think that guitar might have been on Torn. 90s classic.
Wow.
Which would blow my mind. It's not the same as Stairway, obviously.
No, but still.
But yeah, so I then bought this Harmony H1260 Sovereign literally because I wanted the headstock design, and that was it. And it's not as good a guitar. The Silvertone is the one. That's my number one guitar. And that's where we are now.
Do you ever go off the guitar? Do you ever get bored of them?
Clearly, yeah. Clearly.
Not individual ones, but just as a sort of as an instrument. Because I know that you play the piano and stuff at home.
A little bit of piano, yeah. It's like I wrote a couple of songs from this record on piano because one, I'd got bored of playing the guitar, and I felt like I kind of painted myself into this box of like sad guy on stage with an acoustic guitar, which is great. There's nothing wrong with being earnest, but every now and then it'll be that imposter syndrome again or something like that. I'll be just like, what the fuck am I doing? I need to do something else. And I'm not great at the piano, and I think that the naivety of what I was doing on the piano lent itself to writing a slightly more simple song. And I think just pushing yourself is like kind of a really cool thing to do. So as I kind of move forward doing more stuff, I'll probably do more of it. I was just speaking about the Sufjan Stevens record, Age of Ads.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love Sufjan's music anyway. I still can't figure out what it is he actually plays for his acoustic. I'm sure it's like a tenor guitar or something like that. But I was listening to the Age of Ads and I was like, God, like I don't know how a synthesizer works. Like I don't know how any of the knobs work. I don't know anything about like sine waves or filters. Like, what if I just sat down in front of a synthesizer and like maybe tried to write some songs with one of those, just to see how it went. But I do always end up coming back to the acoustic guitar, which is the bread and butter, I suppose.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that and that the location move midway through wasn't too jarring. If you'd like to find out more about Liam and his upcoming shows, his website is liamfrost.co.uk, and when you're done there, go and have a listen to his new album, The Latchkey Kid. Also, go to Star Guitar's Instagram page for pictures of some of the guitars we were talking about. You can also email me at starguitarpodcast@gmail.com or go to Star Guitar Pod on Twitter. Please also leave a comment or rating wherever you got this episode from. It really helps the podcast grow. And finally, something a bit different to finish on this week. As we were moved on from where we started the interview, we didn't really get to hear any of the guitars, really, apart from the out-of-tune resonator. So Liam very kindly offered to send over a recording he made for me. It's a song called Smoke, which is absolutely my favourite song from his new album. He wrote it after a personal tragedy, and it's a really affecting song all about the passing of time and working out who you are after life throws something terrible at you. It stopped me in my tracks the first time I heard it, and I'm made up that he recorded a version just for the podcast. So here's Liam with Smoke, and until next week, bye-bye.
Checker flag vans and an old suit jacket. You and I were on a tear and running rapid. Time waits for no man, or time has passed me by. Still you fool, my soul is thirsting. It's a bad dream I've been having every night this week on a balance beam. It's a day late. I was sleeping in this stalemate, treading water. Time, oh time, did I wither on the vine? You were mine, oh mine. was a clear enough in those words we spoke. Did you know I was that ghost? We are smoke. And I'm going where the ocean meets the land. My father walked the steps in which I stand. Now, was I drinking the Kool-Aid when I told you I felt you there? In this new loss I feel the weight of you, I swear. It's a shoulder fake. For each passing car, a half-life taken, I bite my time. Keep it well hid. A book of matches for the Latchkey Kid. I set a fire to my insides. Well, time, oh time, did I wither on the vine? You were mine, oh mine. And was I clear enough in those words we spoke? Did you know I was that ghost? We are smoke. You hold it up to the light. Take a look from both sides. Hold it up to the light. Say never mind. Let it ride. Well, time, oh time, did I wither on the vine? You were mine, oh mine. And was I clear enough in those words we spoke? Did you know I was that ghost? We are smoke.